All right. Well, good evening, everyone. This is John Craig.
And this is Sandy. And yeah, we are a little bit late, but you've been waiting with bated breath. I know,
And
working technology out.
This
right?
is Walking in Spirit and Truth.
Well, yes, of course it is. But let me.
Well, I wanted to make sure everybody knew what they're listening to.
Okay. You are listening to Walking in Spirit and Truth. In case you didn't know, because you've been waiting. They've been waiting on us.
I know. It's good.
Well, we're excited. Like I said, we were working some kinks out, so thank you for being patient. But we have a special guest this evening.
I am really excited about our special guest this evening.
And our friend.
That's right.
That she's our friend, and I'm blessed that she's our friend. She's walked with us through some pretty hard stuff, but she's been there.
She has. Well, shall we introduce our guest?
Should we have a drum roll?
Okay, there we go. And we have with us Dr. Dinah Dye or Dinah Dye.
Take your pick.
Take your pick.
Yeah, hi. Great to see you guys. Even though no one else can see us, I can see you. You can see me. Yeah, we had a little bit of hiccup there, but we're good now. And thanks for having me on the show.
Well, we are excited. And actually, we usually have people that are getting up to watch. So if they're not tuned in now, they will be shortly, and they'll be watching you live.
That's right. And if you're listening and you're watching, whether it's live or on the archive, give us a thumbs up and tell us what you think and let us know what your comments are. We'd like to hear from you.
We want to hear from you, and we want you to share this video.
Absolutely.
Get it some places.
And I'm going to tell you, with the things that we're going to talk about today, I think you're definitely going to want to share it, put it on Facebook. You're going to send it as an email, as a link, call a friend. Yeah, all sorts of stuff. Call a friend.
Call a friend right now.
Lifeline.
No, and say, you don't want to miss this.
Okay. All right.
Well, all I know is that as we jump right in, we should probably just do a quick prayer.
We should do a quick prayer. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to have this conversation here and the platform that we get to use it on, so we can talk about some very, very important things that affect our lives and how we as believers can walk in the truth, and we can walk in your spirit in order to walk out what we find in the Torah in everyday life. Father, we thank you for it, and we just give you this conversation in the name of Yeshua. Amen.
Well, I wanted to just let everybody know, if you guys didn't know, New Mexico has elected a Democratic governor, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic Congress or House. And because of that, there are things that have happened quickly. I would say like faster than you would ever think legislation could pass, because there's an agenda that we can't even fathom. But it is literally what is representative of what will happen to this nation if we don't step up and do something, if we remain silent, if we don't vote, and if we don't pray for discernment on the times that are happening and act upon that. And I don't know how many have been tuning on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, but Dr. Dinah Dye has been very busy combating the evil. She has been standing up for righteousness. She has been standing up for truth. And I know one of her messages is to say, you need to do the same. You need to do the same lest this happen to you in your state. So, Dr. Dye, would you like to jump in there with a little bit after that?
So let me just ask you.
Just interrupted.
I know, but I just so we can kick it off. So you've been doing a lot of stuff here lately.
Said that.
And so I guess what I want to know is what happened and what spurred you, and then what have you been doing?
Why couldn't she answer my questions first?
Well, because I was kind of.
Yeah. Why didn't you just let her answer mine and then you jump in after that?
Okay. Are you confused yet?
No, not too confused. Well, last fall, of course, we had the election, and in which an awful lot of Christians, Catholics, etc., in this state did not vote. What was happening? We had a representative from a 2nd Congressional District in New Mexico, Steve Pierce, who was running for office. Great guy, solid credentials, pro-life, everything you'd want in a candidate. Now, we did have 8 years of a Republican governor, Susana Martinez, and for the most part was kind of worthless, but she was a bulwark against anything. So that the Democratic House and Senate would pass bills and she would not sign them. So we had, some restraint. Sometime in the summer, the Father kind of laid it on my heart to really begin to pray for Steve Pierce, which I did fervently, daily. But I knew in the back of my mind he wasn't going to win. And the money came flowing into the state from the number one source of campaign money for the current governor. I don't even like using her name. I'm so bad. But she got like about $250,000 from the unions here in the state, teachers unions, things like that. And then, of course, money came from out of state. Michael Bloomberg was in here big time, bribing all the legislators with the gun bills. We had George Soros money coming in here, not as much as the unions, and we had Planned Parenthood money coming in here big time. And the election wasn't really even close. Michelle Lujan Grisham won by a large margin. And on the day she won, this state had a $1.3 billion surplus from the oil, and not a total surplus, but we had $1.3 billion oil and gas money. This is one of the poorest states in the union. It is one of the only states in which the unemployment rate is high. It's one of the highest. In fact, today they came out as 5.1. So high unemployment in the state, no manufacturing going on. We are at a deficit in terms of manufacturing jobs. The number one employer of the state, we could argue, is either the government, the state government, or UNM school. And I just knew on that day that woman was going to take every bit of that $1.3 billion and spend it and then some. Well, everything I thought on the election in the fall has come to pass. So I, kind of checked out for a few months because we bought a house, we moved, and I couldn't think about any of this. And we got 4 feet of snow, so we were under, and it was all we could do to dig out. And then she was inaugurated, and pretty soon in short order, the legislature met. And in the course of 4 weeks, this state just completely flipped from being, I don't even know how to put it. We are being run by a Democrat supermajority. As Sandi said at the top of the show, the governor is a Democrat. The state house and Senate, run by Democrats. The entire congressional delegation are all Democrats from all the congressional districts, plus the 2 senators. So total unadulterated control. And my message has been for the last 4 to 5 weeks, wake up, folks, because if this happens in Washington, the USA as we know it is over. This state is officially over. I'm going to go through the bills that have been signed and headed to her desk, and this state does not have a chance. In fact, today, HB 489 got passed by the House. It's a climate change bill to eliminate all carbon by 2045, which will basically shut down the entire oil and gas industry in this state, which employs thousands of people. And the cost of electricity, you'll remember when dear Obama said that if we, move to eliminate carbon, that electricity will necessarily skyrocket. Well, welcome to the poorest state in the union. The electric bills are going to triple, quadruple. She is going to basically all the coal that we have in the Four Corners is all going to shut down. Everything's going to shut down for the stupid carbon, wind, solar thing that just makes me want to scream. That happened today. So we have had abortion bills, assisted suicide bills. They have shut down any new charter schools. Red flag gun laws, there's been a flurry of them. They've all passed.
Can you be specific on a few of those so the people that don't know will understand?
What would you like to know? Because I don't want to get in the weeds here. yeah, I don't want to go into a lot of detail because people's eyes will roll back in their head. But particularly egregious is what we call House Bill 51, which is the abortion bill. We had in place some protections. Now, New Mexico is a late-term abortion state. In Albuquerque in particular, there's a late-term abortion clinic. People fly in from literally all over the world, but all over the United States. Number one, place in the United States. Literally come in here for late-term abortions up until the time the baby's born. The clinic here works with the hotels. The hotels shuttle these girls, these women back and forth. It's just incestuous. Planned Parenthood has brought in oodles and oodles of money. But there were a law was passed in 1969, which basically allowed for conscientious objection for medical personnel. And there were some provisions to protect the baby and the mother towards the end of the term. And I'm not going to go into all that. So what they did was they stripped away any sort of limits or restraint on abortion, even though you could still have an abortion late term. Now there are literally no limits whatsoever. Now, it doesn't actually say it in the bill, but the way it's designed is medical personnel will be forced to perform abortions. You can basically have an abortion the day the baby is, to be born. There's no protections whatsoever. There are no limits whatsoever. This is actually the most radical abortion bill in the country. I know people talked about New York and Virginia, etc., but New Mexico is far worse.
I was going to say, because New York was pretty radical as it was, but listening to what's happening, this has gone completely under the radar.
Yes.
And yet this is the very thing that if we as believers are not paying attention, because if Yeshua tarries and we're sitting here and we're living another, where our grandchildren are going to grow up in this environment, what are we leaving them? And I'll tell you this, Deanna, this is where I've been talking about this a lot lately, is that what good are our Torah studies and our congregations and our assemblies if all we do is sit around a table in Midrash and talk and have nothing where we take our faith and put it into action? If we've been, I think what's happened within our communities is we've become so
insulated,
and we're looking for an exodus that we have simply isolated ourselves and have become no good to society.
No different than those that believe in the rapture. No different.
Yeah.
Well, let me, like I said, I mean, my brain is just exploding with stuff. So we don't want to get, I don't want to get too far, into the weeds. I posted something today and just basically, briefly, a California assemblyman introduced a bill in which the state would force anyone that was in school, high school, college, whatever, to have the phone number of Planned Parenthood on their IDs. Okay. So, I posted that, just a heads up, get everybody frustrated. And then someone responded on my post, and I'm not going to bring attention to her because I think what she was expressing was pretty common. And she basically said, well, isn't this supposed to happen? Isn't this the sign of the Great Tribulation? Isn't it necessary in order to usher in his return? And, that was kind of the basis of what she said. And I just went, oh my, everything in me. And, I wrote a response and I encouraged her too to get involved. So, there was no heart,
but I hear that. I hear that all the time.
Yeah. Let me read you what I wrote on my Facebook post. So her thing was, isn't this supposed to happen? And I responded, this isn't supposed to happen. That these are the consequences of the faith community being MIA in the culture wars, of not standing up for the unborn, and of not pushing back against immoral laws. In the ancient world, the king seated on the throne brought order to his empire. Yeshua is already on the throne, and the kingdom is alive and well, but his people have chosen not to advance, but to retreat instead. Chaos has come because we have not moved out into the world as his representatives to spread his kingdom principles. We have been totally content to let Hollywood, the media, the educrats, etc., do our heavy lifting.
Mm.
And
That's
I feel
so
like it just kind of encapsulated that message that she was talking about, that has infected the church and really all the faith community from really the early 1900s of this, and actually almost going back into the 1800s, of this head for the hills, way out until, the Great Tribulation is over and the millennial comes, and, there's nothing we can do. We just, we got to just wait it out till Jesus comes. Well, I'm saying he's already here. He's alive and well and already here, and we are supposed to be his representatives. He is the king, working, moving. And so the problem with all this is people, politics is dirty business for sure. And we have this idea that somehow we are spiritual and this other stuff is political, and I'm not going to get my hands dirty. But the fact of the matter is the Bible is probably one of the most political books you'll ever read.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just dealing with spiritual issues, it's dealing with events on the ground. And look, the failures of the people brought all of this stuff to bear on them. And we are blessed beyond measure to actually have a say, a voice in our own government. That's not happened in the history of mankind. And so what have we done as a faith community? We pretty much pulled out completely and said, well, I don't care. It's not my problem. I'm going to heaven. And this type of thinking is really what's gotten us here. The kingdom is not some distant, faraway place. It is present here on earth. And we are the ones that fight for it, take territory, and expand it.
Yes. One of the things which you're saying is exactly right, because it was in the 60s, 70s, maybe as early as the 50s when the first seeds were planted with this, but it's the notion of the separation of church and state. And when those notions...
that was a letter that was written to Thomas Jefferson from the Danbury Baptists, that they were asking of that, is there not a separate? So it was only in a letter. It's not in the Constitution.
Yeah, it's not in the Constitution,
exactly.
But that's what's taught in our schools.
Yes.
It was in the Soviet Constitution.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And but they started to adopt that and started to teach that in regular practice in the universities back in the 60s and 70s with the radicals that took over the education systems. Sure did.
Yeah, exactly right.
And so they've educated and how many generations now to actually think that we don't actually have a voice in society. In fact, one of the things is that when people are being appointed into positions, if they have any type of religious background, the Democrats have stated outright, you have no place, or your religion has no voice in our culture. Therefore,
theirs does.
But you should be be disqualified for office.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi with her little ash thing on her forehead on the same day they're voting for infanticide. Yeah, that's just perfect.
Yeah. Well, and let's not be mistaken. Even if they're atheists, I'm sorry, it's a religion, it's a belief system. Humanism is a belief system. And honestly, right now we have a whole bunch of people that run around believing they're God. I mean, let's do it. I'm God. I am my own man. It's all about me and my selfishness and my ways. But then we also have this underground thing that really wants America destroyed. And we have people that are just going right along with it, because that's the ultimate plan, is the United States, the destruction of everything that once was.
Well, that's why I'm sounding the alarm, because every thing that the progressive socialists, communists have wanted to do, they have done in New Mexico in 4 weeks.
4 weeks, folks.
In 4 weeks. I mean, we're talking assisted suicide, abortion, charter schools. They want to dispense marijuana, the state. And those who can't afford it, they want to subsidize medical marijuana, but they also want to be able to dispense marijuana everywhere. They're closing down coal plants, shutting down the oil industry. They wanted to pump in $100,000 into the schools for circus training. They've upended the Electoral College. We had right to work counties. They just passed something to kill all the right to work counties. I mentioned the red flag gun laws. We have the largest tax increase in the history of New Mexico. every family is going to owe $2,000-3,000. They've made the state a sanctuary state. The governor pulled the National Guard off the border. Yesterday, they bussed 300 illegal immigrants up to Albuquerque because there was no room in El Paso. They got them in hotels in Albuquerque, 300 of them. I could go on for 10 minutes of what has happened in 4 weeks.
Is there anything, well, when it concerns the border, doesn't federal law trump state law?
Oh yeah, but nothing's happened. The border, they've been completely overrun down there. I don't know if you read an article. 70,000 illegals came across between Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona in the month of February alone. We're on track for 1 million illegals coming in this year. Of course, they're bringing in all their infectious diseases, and and we got all that stuff. We will talk about the good things that are going on, but I just want you to understand that our state is completely under siege. And my husband and I were talking about it today. I said, basically in 2 years, it is no longer. It will look like California. We will have homeless. I mean, we already got homeless tents in Albuquerque. It's going to look that way in very short order. And, you can already hear the rumblings. People are, I got to get out of here. They passed with this tax bill. Of course, we didn't have to pay taxes for online services. And now we're all, I'm going to have to, pump out another $5,000 a year just to cover those costs. Income tax went up, property tax went up. I mean, people cannot afford this in the poorest state in the union.
How do you even cover the taxes? How do you make enough money to cover? I'm talking in general.
Yeah, there's no growth here. No, so generally the Southwest, I mean, people come down, move down here. The weather's good, and the state Texas is growing by leaps and bounds. Arizona, not too bad. Colorado's doing pretty good. Utah's growing really well. New Mexico is not growing at all. Now, the only growth in here is lateral. If you sell your house, you're selling your house to somebody else who lives down the road. There's nothing coming in here. And after this, nobody's coming in here.
Well, and I want to say this, and you and I haven't spoken, but the only reason that John and I have always liked to go short vacations in New Mexico.
Right.
Well, no more. The only reason we're going to come into New Mexico is hang out with you guys.
Yeah,
I have no desire to even be in the atmosphere of that state.
I'm sounding the alarm because we have an election coming up in 2020, which isn't very far away. And if the Democrats take the presidency, the House, and the Senate, New Mexico is going to look like a little party, a street party compared to what they're going to do. I mean, you've already seen what the Democrat House has done with infanticide, great, and with illegals voting, all the stuff coming out of there. It'll be their Christmas wish list on steroids. So I'm trying to basically my goal is wake up, sound the alarm, and then now, we got to talk about, okay, what do we do? Because I can't leave everybody totally depressed. I've already been depressed for weeks on end.
So one of the challenges that we're looking at, because of what we see is what happens so quickly in the legislature is that it happens overnight. That's what it does. It happens overnight.
Absolutely.
All they just have to do, they just start voting, and then they start sending it to a governor that approves it, just signs it right off, and that's what will happen. And that's what would have happened if Hillary had gotten elected.
That's exactly right. This is a view. This is a purview of what would have happened if she had become president.
So we would have lost our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, our Fifth Amendment, which is the right to due process. We would have lost our Fourth Amendment, which is the unlawful
search and seizures.
Yeah. So all of those protections would have been gone. Who knows what else they would have taken or imposed upon us as a result of that. The whole Constitution would have been thrown out, let alone the judges that are appointed into positions. All of those things can happen, and we can lose overnight. And, Deanna, you said something in one of your Facebook posts as well as look out for who will be running for office, and those that will be running for Republican positions are rhinos. Republicans in name only.
No, this is, I mean, that's true. I encourage people, I don't want to even go into all of this other than to tell your listeners to go check out a group called the Justice Democrats. And the Justice Democrats, there's a lot of names involved in this, but they're the ones, they formed a group in 2017 with the goal of electing as many of their ilk progressives as they could. I mentioned in the post they got 79 on ballots, 26 won primaries, and 6 ended up in Congress. 2 of them are, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Ilhan Omar, and then Tashli, that other one, and I can't think, Presley, there's another one. Anyways, these ones made it. They actually put a casting call out and it went out to 10,000 people, and AOC was picked from 10,000 to run in that seat. And they look for places. She only won. She got 16,000 votes, sum total, and now she's in Congress. But she was handpicked because she gave a good audition. So there's people, she's the puppet, and the puppet masters and this group called the Justice Democrats are behind her. This guy who was head of the Young Turks was part of it. He is no longer. And the guy, Sakrat Schuber, I call him Sakrat Chewbacca because I can't pronounce his last name. But, now their federal authorities are looking into campaign illegal milk to the tune of $1 million. Anyways, just go look it up and you'll see what I'm talking about. So in the next round in 2020, not only are they going to put up their candidates in the progressives, they're going to put up fake Republicans. They're going to handpick people who can pretend to be Republicans and talk about, Republican values and pro-life and all that stuff and free markets and all that. But they're not. They're of this organization. So this was a warning to people. You'll see somebody and he's, they look like a good Republican with all your values. You had better check them out.
Mm-hmm.
Beware. Absolutely.
In fact, they're going to have to, you need to invite, you don't need all these ones that have come in and they have no background whatsoever. We can't elect people like that. We've got to check out our candidates and we've got to go do something. We need to become the candidates.
Well, let me just say this. We have to, let's put it in perspective, not necessarily that they have no background, beware, because President Trump didn't have a political background, but he had quite a background that made him a great executive to be put into that office. Whereas a lot of these people, they've been groomed only in politics. So what do you get? You get the same old stuff. And that's really the key. We need to have people in there with substance, with a history of having substance.
Yeah. You can't listen to people who just talk. They've got to be walking the talk. And, you have to know that because to vote, if you're going to vote for one of these fake Republicans and now they end up in, their whole goal of this group, the Justice Democrats, is to remove all of the dinosaur Democrats like Pelosi and Schumer and all of those and get them out of Congress and to remove all the moderate Democrats so that they have total control. This is all about control. It's never been about anything else. So this thing is accelerating at a rapid rate. And so, again, I'm just trying to sound the alarm. New Mexico was a testing ground, because we have a very small population, only 2 million in the 5th largest state in the union. And this thing was already in position. And they knew I would say last summer, they knew they were going to win. And a lot of these laws were probably already written before the legislature even met. So it was all coming down the pipeline. And so, and then it's just all sailed through that the Republicans cannot stop anything. Now, we do have to talk about some of the good things that are going on. Because the sleeping giant may well be waking up in New Mexico. So I don't know if there were about 4 or 5 gun bills that were very bad. SB 8 was the universal background check, totally unenforceable. And HB 83 was particularly egregious because if someone was in your house and goes, "Oh, I don't like guns," they could report you. You have to go before a judge. The judge can confiscate your guns just because they don't like guns. It's supposed to be a mental health issue, but, it isn't. And if somebody falsely accused you and they did it anonymously, there was no recourse. They went off scot-free. And meanwhile, you end up having all your guns taken away. That's just kind of a few. And it's pretty well. Oh, it also has storage laws. And they were like, really? Is the sheriff's going to go to every home in the county and check and see if you got your guns locked up? So most of these laws were pretty well unenforceable. And the sheriffs of all the counties knew that. So a move started to happen amongst the sheriffs. We have 33 counties and 31 sheriffs basically said, we are not going to enforce these laws. It violates the Constitution of the United States, and even more so violates the Constitution of New Mexico. So they began to stand up against it county by county. And then the governor responded, calling them that they were having a pity party, and she called them rogues. And so now we all Mexicans got excited and said, we're all rogues now. Hallelujah. So right now, 26 counties have declared themselves to be Second Amendment sanctuary counties. And I want to give you an example of what one person, me, was able to do. So I'm in a county, Santa Fe County, in which they will never pass the Second Amendment sanctuary county status. So I thought, okay, I'm in a town where a lot of people have guns here, defend themselves. So I wrote to the town council, to the mayor. I wrote to the police chief, and I just said, hey, how about making Edgewood a Second Amendment sanctuary town? And I got somewhere with two of the council people, and I started working with them. Basically, we sort of got it on the agenda, but not really. But that's another long story. Anyways, I went out. I made flyers. I took them to businesses. I talked to people. I made phone calls. I got on all the Facebook pages in our neighborhood, Facebook groups, and just plastered it everywhere. Talked to everyone, and so we had a meeting last week, and they allowed for public comment in the first part of the meeting. And I didn't really, I was sort of anticipating, well, if we can get 25 or 30, I'd be pretty happy. It'd be nice if we got 50, whatever. So we get there are 130 people in that room. Wow. There's no room to sit, standing room only. And they let every single person who wanted to speak. And I'm going to guess maybe 30 people got up and spoke and asked them to declare Edgewood to be a Second Amendment sanctuary town. Only one person was against it. And I just sat there and marveled because, no one else did it. I did the whole thing myself. I've only been in Edgewood, 3 months? And I just, rallied the troops. Now, granted, it was an issue that I knew they would respond to, and they did. And, we're waiting to hear from the town council. But there's 8 cities that have done that. And like I said, 31 sheriffs. So what we have in New Mexico, we have the ability to nullify a law. Right now, we're looking at 48 laws that need to be nullified. If the law doesn't violate something to do with the budget, or if it doesn't have to do with a safety issue, if you get 10% of signatures of those who were registered to vote in the last election, which for New Mexico will be about 70,000, we need to get them by July. If we do, that law will be basically nullified, and then it would go to the voters to vote on in the next election. So we have a mechanism in which we can do this. So now the first one to go will be this SB8, the universal background check. And the Republicans already filed a petition. And so that petition will be coming out soon. And I have no doubt we'll get 70,000 signatures. But this is at least a way for us to go, you're not doing this to us anymore. Because these people, this is tyranny. These people are, totalitarian dictators in Santa Fe who are not listening. People go up there, they call, they do everything, and they just, thumb their nose in our face. Today, there was a rally up at the Roundhouse by a group called Cowboys for Trump. Don't know if you've heard of, they rode into Washington a couple of weeks ago. They rode the horses from the fairgrounds in Santa Fe to the Roundhouse. And there was about 1,000 people that showed up today, and the weather was terrible. It rained all days, but 1,000 people showed up. So there's starting to be, people are going, wait just a minute here. And the next thing I'm doing when we're going on vacation, when I get back, I'm going to be doing a 2-day training for precinct captain or chair or something. So everyone, this is how you win, is you take your country back precinct by precinct. And New Mexico has 1,900 precincts with approximately 400 to 800 people per precinct. And I'm like, man, I could manage 500 people or whatever. We need to educate them, and we need to build the community that way. And you can run around, you can go to your churches, and you can go to your whatever groups and businesses and whatever, and just start educating them. If you want to take back the state, this is what we got to do. And so all that to say that everyone needs to do something. I'm not saying everyone needs to go be a precinct captain, but you could at least help your precinct captain. And you need to find out who's who in your community, who your mayor is in town council. And you need to start writing letters to them and engaging them and building relationships. We have got to do this. And, people can poo-poo this and say, well, I'm too spiritual and this is political. Well, if you want to lose your country and lose your soul and lose your grandchildren, yeah, have that attitude. But I'm telling you, I think for such a time, the call is on all of us to do something in our sphere of influence to make a difference.
It's a really, really, really powerful statement of what you said, because it all starts at the ground, ground roots, that ground level, to be able to go in and do it. And a lot of times people say, well, I'm too busy. It's beyond being able to say that or use that excuse anymore. I really feel like it's very important for every one of us to be able to go out there and get involved. I mean, one of the things that I've been listening to and been paying attention to is, okay, we were talking about all of these far left representatives that are going to Washington and they're being elected. They're going into the state houses. They're going into the state senates. All of them. And then they're bringing in Texas. Has a number of bills that have been proposed, and they're what we're calling ban the Bible bills. Mm-hmm. And it's a number of bills that specifically relate to actually removing our voice as believers from the culture, and making it a crime if we don't bow down to their 1 or 2 or 3% population and their desires for our culture. And
folks, this is Texas.
And this is Texas.
It's never been
California. This is Texas.
Exactly.
Wake up.
To the point of saying that I'm going to use the word church. Some of y'all get offended by that. I'm going to use it though. But churches will be required to have joint bathrooms and showers and all of that sort of thing. Oh. That's what these laws are telling us that we're going to be required to do if they ever get passed.
Gender identity law passed yesterday in New Mexico, and now on your license you can be whatever the heck you want. Well, how are the police going to enforce that? So that was yesterday's bill that got passed.
Yeah. And so what does that end up doing? Well, you get pulled over and you get thrown in jail or whatever the reason is. Well, I identify with a female. I'm a female. And then you're going to have these men that are gender men born with, you know what I'm saying?
They're men.
They're men with the women.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to those women that are in jail?
And it's insane.
Yeah, it is. It's completely insane. In fact, Ruth Bader Ginsburg in the 1970s said they need to have genderless jails and prisons. She already wrote that all the way back in the 70s. I actually read some of her writings on it. But when we look at it, the whole push is to push it so far to the left that it's going to pull those on the right to the center and more to the left. The whole purpose is to swing the whole nation a certain direction. Ultimately, they want to go far extreme left. But if they can make these things proposals so far to the left that what's been the history is that those that are on the right will say, well, we need to come up with some type of compromise. Well,
no compromise.
The compromise is always to the left. It's always swinging us too far.
It's never the other way, but no compromise.
That's why JFK, John F. Kennedy, looks like a conservative in 2019, because he wasn't so much of one in the early 1960s. Right. That's because they keep pushing it left, and those on the right just compromise it and allow it one step at a time.
Stop compromising people.
And that's what happens when we sit back and we just say, we hired you to make sign those bills and to make those laws. But when we allow them to do that, what happens when they go to Washington? How many of them have been compromised in Washington? How many of them, therefore, they say, you can vote however you want, but when that specific time comes, you're going to have to vote this way. And that's how they get their way. That's how they swing the pendulum more and more to the left. And what does that mean when it goes to the left? It means we lose our rights. We lose our free speech, our ability to be able to meet and gather and worship together however we want to worship.
Our ability to even live and make a living.
To make a living, though, the whole point of universal health care is to remove our ability to save money. I mean, look at what happened to Obamacare, where costs of insurance tripled. Quadrupled. And
you don't get insurance. And you don't actually get anything covered.
And the deductible goes up so high that there is nothing covered except in such catastrophic events, but you're still bankrupt by the end of if you ever have to use it. So that is the liberal agenda. That's where they're taking us to demoralize and to remove our strength, our power, and our voice so that those in power can have power.
Well, the reality, and if we put it back in the context of the Bible, is when a culture or a country or a nation or whatever removes the presence of God from their midst, it's not empty. It's not an empty vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
Something's going to move in. And so you either have the King of Kings seated on the throne, bringing order, with right rulings and with righteousness and justice, or you've got chaos from bad leaders, disorder and chaos, bad kings ruling over you, making rulings that make your life hard and enslave you. There's no middle ground here. So God's presence is either in the midst of us or it's not. And, the church, as I, use as a generic term, speaking of all of the faith community, think about back in 1950, from the 40s into the 50s, the church actually was the overseer of what was coming out of Hollywood. And then they pulled out. And I do think that moment, that was kind of a death knell for the culture. I think it was 1954. And they no longer reviewed or rated, movies that were being made in Hollywood. And I think the floodgates just opened up after that. We also look in the 30s with John Dewey and the whole the public school pattern based off of the Prussian model to control the children versus educate. Well, I don't even like the word educate, but to train and mentor and teach. Yeah, all of that stuff. And the 30s was a particularly interesting time in terms of communism and people. We've talked about this. Because people ask, why are Jews so liberal? And you have to remember that a lot of them, when they, left, if they were able to leave Russia or whatever, and they came to the United States, they brought that with them. Because in Russia, that's all they've ever known is being controlled either by a king, a czar, or, the communist leadership, Stalin or Vladimir Lenin, all those guys. And so there was a strong move of communism in the 30s in this country. And then, and we've been talking lately too about McCarthy, totally marginalized, vilified in every way. But the fact of the matter, he was right. There was, a communist under every tree infiltrating the government, but more so infiltrating the culture, which we move into the 60s and 70s with the hippie movement was really a communist type, movement. With the Bill Ayers types and all that sort of thing. So it's been going on for a very long time. But the church has been MIA. It has not pushed back. It doesn't speak out against the cultural issues. Roe v. Wade should have never happened. And now look where we are. 61 million babies aborted, 42 million last year worldwide.
Number one cause of death in America.
Where are we if we can't even protect the most defenseless, innocent life among us? What good are we, honestly?
Which that's a whole nother, because the whole point is they want babies born alive because there's a certain things they harvest. But you spoke about how the church, the so-called church, which means any believing community, guys.
Yes, that
Don't think
includes
you're
us.
exempt. If you're a Hebrew roots community, a Messianic community, whatever, Jewish community, whatever you are, this goes for you. But they've been threatened with the 501c3. If you speak out at all on anything as a leader in a congregation, then you'll be fined and imprisoned and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I know at least the uneducated, so to speak, uneducated, because the tax law is ridiculous, but some believe this threat hangs over their head, and it does. But and if you say, well, I'm not 501c3, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter if you've signed onto that or not. They can get you with or without that. So folks, if you tout, I'm not a 501c3, so this doesn't matter. If you are a leader of a group that gathers with any sort of religious base, it doesn't matter if you have one or not. So just FYI on that.
And the truth in that is just simply look at all the people that if they want to take somebody out, all they have to do is take them out. I mean, the way the corruption is, and you just look at the various
make something up,
FBI investigations and the judicial system, the way it's working, all they have to do is make it up. They bankrupt them. They can't afford defense because the government has unlimited power and unlimited finances, and individuals run out of money and they can't defend themselves. So they're going to lock you up. That's just the way it is. So we just either need to make a stand, but we have to do it as a group. We have to do it as people. And we have to do it. And I really like what you said, Deanna, is about this is that if we don't do anything, are we serving our king? Are we truly serving Yeshua as our king? Or are we serving another king? Because our silence is really telling us who we really serve, because Yeshua was an activist. He spoke against the evils of the day, and he didn't let him slide.
At the cost of his own life.
At the cost of his own life, exactly.
Well, and it's interesting too. I mean, in first century temple period, under Rome, a lot of the language, like for example, in the book of Revelation, is really the extra biblical literature is kind of code language, because you couldn't go around calling, saying things about the Caesar, so you had to use other terms, which is what, we find when we're reading the New Testament, that, they understood the political signs. And Yeshua took it on. He dealt with what was going on in the temple with the Sadducees in particular, the political group running the temple, running it into the ground. And he spoke of them as a brood of vipers. I mean, he didn't say Sadducees are snakes, but language was used to show what was going on in the political realm. And people have this idea that there's nothing political going on. It's just ridiculous, because I can't think of a book in the Bible where we're not dealing with a king and an empire, and we're dealing with how you run that empire, and good law and bad law, and what it does to the people. It's in the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation.
And what happens when you compromise it? Clearly,
when the king is, when you don't worship your king, when you don't let him rule from his throne in his right rulings and in his justice and his mercy, and you take it on yourself, or a king comes in who's a bad king and just lords it over you and enslaves you. I mean, when they went down to Egypt, they had to deal with bad kings of Pharaoh, Babylon with King Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, the whole Bible is dealing with kingship and empires and politics. Yeah. And so for us to just say, oh, well, I'm just very spiritual and I'm just not going to go there, is, to me, ridiculous.
I think James makes a point where he says, you say you have faith, I'll show you my faith by what I do. Or by my works, or, a lot of people get offended by the works. Well, the fact is, our faith is how we live, and it's demonstrated, and it tells us who we serve, and that is really the key. If we're going to walk this thing out, if we're going to, if it's not just for us, it's for our kids, it's for our grandkids,
and down to the third and fourth generation.
And what are we going to leave them, and what legacy? And are they going to be cursing us because we chose to just stay in our little Torah studies, or and didn't do a thing, and we weren't a voice, and we didn't speak out, and we didn't talk about the injustices and re-educate? I mean, the fact is that we've given over the education system to a government system, all the way down to Head Start programs, where they start programming the kids at an early age so that it's hard coded into them that they can't even see what socialism will lead. They can't see that socialism leads them to Venezuela, where they were not even maintaining their power station. So when they got the power turned back on, they blew up.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what socialism does. It doesn't take care of anybody except those that are on top. And the rest are just simply there to feed
useless
them.
eaters.
They're useless eaters.
Is what they call it.
Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly right. No, I mean, that is the nature of, well, I probably don't want to go there, but, bad kings in the Bible are tyrants. And tyrants always operate the same way. They're always threatened by people who are free, who might rise up against them. And one of the ways they've done that in the past, of course, is confiscate their guns, like we saw in World War II. We also saw in Venezuela, 2012, they all had their guns confiscated, because that is a threat to the elite, the political elite, and the ruling class. And so this is the main reason they keep on and on with the gun laws, because it's one of the founders were brilliant in this regard, because they recognized that this was one of the ways in which you could defend yourself against the tyranny of the government. Because I think they knew, as they wrote the Constitution, all governments end up in tyranny. They all end up in the same place. And so, here we are. But, you can just go back to every tyrant in history, and the pattern and how they operate is identical. And so now we can see it in our U.S. Congress and the House of Representatives operating in the same way. Bullies, they're like the mafia, trying to lord it over the people and take away. I mean, they would like to prevent you from even being able to think. If they had their way, they would reprogram your brain so you could not think.
Yeah.
Ultimately, stop thinking. You work. We'll tell you what to do. You work. You give the money to us. We'll distribute it as we see fit. And then we'll
give it to our friends.
Yeah. Once you reach the age of 30, maybe 35 or 40, it's going to be like that Logan's Run from the 70s. You've already outlived your way. Go ahead and give your life up, and we'll take your children when they're born. We laugh,
but it's here. It's here. Yeah. And that's that's kind of where I've been at. I mean, I cannot wait until this legislative session is over, which is on the 16th, because I can't take it anymore. I mean, there's no way I'm trying to keep everybody educated, but I'm like, my brain's about to explode. And I've got to find the place where I'm the most, where my gifts and talents lie, and where I can work the best. I can't work every single issue. It's just not possible. And so I've just picked a few, because to me, the most important issue is life. I mean, if you don't have life, you don't have anything. Yeah. So if we can't even agree on that, I don't know how, where we're going to go forward from there. But I feel that one of my areas is to help educate people, to keep them aware and abreast of what's going on. So, that's what I've tried to do in the last 4 weeks. But I have to tell you, I am just spent trying to do this. And I mean, I'm just one person, and there are many others. There's people. When I think about the law that passed in New York, the abortion law, they were working on this law for 12 years, and there was the Republicans had the House in New York, and so they prevented it from being passed. And then finally, because I don't know, people didn't vote or whatever, the Democrats took hold of the House and the Senate, and they had the governorship in New York, and they finally, after 12 years, were able to pass that bill. And then we saw them cheering and lighting up where the World Trade Center was. I mean, you're just like, what on earth? And again, I'm trying to find those places and educate people, where I can, but we simply have got to wake up, and we've got to push back, and we have to be able to push back without fear. We will have fear, but I know that, the Spirit will give us the words and the courage. Fear is kind of a natural thing, but we have to just, push past it, because nothing's going to change if we
Can
don't.
we sit here, and what we hear so often is there's such division among the different people that call themselves believers in Yeshua, that follow the Torah, that are filled with the Spirit, et cetera, et cetera. Our eyes are so focused on the silly things that
I
we're
would
missing
agree.
the picture. Wouldn't it be amazing if the next time we gather with a larger group, that that part of the conversation is, what did you do in your sphere of influence today to better society? What did you do to fight the tyranny that's coming down, to fight the evil that's coming down the line, instead of, oh, well, who the name is this, or what about this, or our conversation. And if this doesn't ever come up, that means we're still sitting in our Torah groups, looking for that little bit of knowledge that nobody else has, or that very few have, to sort of tout, like, ooh, look what I have, instead of actually doing something. And I think that.
Well, when I go work with groups, okay, are we all on the same page spiritually? Not hardly. I mean, it runs the gamut. Half the people I'm working with celebrate Christmas. Now, does this mean I can't work with them? How ridiculous is that? Yeah. So we all have a common thread here. We love God. We believe Jesus, Yeshua, is the Messiah, who came to restore and deliver the world and, make us a new creation. I'm good with that. We got that out of the way. Now let's roll up our sleeves and go to work. And if we're both on the same page, to defend the life of the unborn, or protect the elderly, or whatever, it's okay. And my life and how I walk it out is my business. Essentially, if somebody wants to hear about it, I'm more than happy to share. They might even want to follow it. I don't know, but it's just not that important to me. What's important to me is that we get in there, on behalf of we know what the heart of God is. We know that his heart is compassion and mercy, and that life is the numero uno value of God. Surely we can all agree on that. And then, like you say, we get into these arguments over stupid stuff. And how convenient, because when you're fighting with each other, you're not a force to be reckoned with. That's for sure.
Well, all I can say, one of the thoughts that I've had is that we say, well, I can't do it on my own. I don't have enough time. And
she's done it.
And yet, but we have groups already set up, formed, that people actually get along with one another. They can actually talk.
Right.
They actually can say, let's take, we'll have our Torah study here, but let's meet here and let's talk about the issues that we need to deal with, like in Amarillo, Texas, Dallas, Texas, wherever, where Albuquerque, New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico, wherever one lives, and they have a group and they are meeting. What a perfect way to say, hey, let's research this. Let's divide up what the tasks are that need to be done, so that we can be a voice,
a political voice
in this community. And let alone, because some people say, well, one person may be politically active and the other one says, I don't have anything to do with it. But everybody has talents. I mean, Deanna, you've got talent. You can research this stuff out to get word out. I mean, Sandy's got great organizational skills. I can watch. No, I don't know. I'm not gonna watch. But seriously, we have even right now groups all over this nation, and you can call them Hebrew roots, you can call them Messianic, you can call them Christian, you can call them whatever you want, but believers in the communities of faith that are actually communities that can say, we're all going down to the city council this week. We're all going to go down. We're going to start petitioning our commissioners.
Should we even ever miss a city council meeting? Really? So we or when
tough, let me tell you, I am. So this is an area that's really difficult, because I'm of the opinion, this is just me, but meetings for me are a complete waste of time. Like, I can't think of a better way to waste time than to go sit in a meeting, listen to people pontificate, and nothing gets. But that is the way government operates. And
Sure.
That when I went to a meeting and I sat there and I said, I realized this, I don't feel that I am called to actually serve in government in that way, to be a legislator, or whatever. because all they do is attend meetings and talk about stuff. I realize that my gift is in educating and rallying the troops and networking. So I'm going to tap in on that. I'm not running for office. I know people keep telling me I should run for office, but I'm not. I couldn't stand it. And I would, if I won, what? I'm going to be having meetings all the time. So I'm trying to do something because of my aversion to meetings. But I don't. I can't. Some people may be able to go to meetings regularly and hear what's going on, take notes, and educate the community. Just for me personally, it's definitely not my calling. But people should attend.
And it's not recreating the wheel. And a lot of people say, I don't even know how to do that. The point is we live in an information age that the resources are readily available. Yeah. That if it's an issue of life, if it's an issue of immigration, if it's an issue of health or healthcare, insurance, whatever.
Good heavens.
They're riled up too. So we have all of those. There's resources out there. One just needs to tap in and find the resources and print off the documents and use that as the talking points,
Absolutely.
Points, get the word out, use that, copy and paste, put it on Facebook. And I know they're censoring Facebook. They're censoring a lot of these networking. Yeah. But if it means that we just got to print them out and go post them on a light pole, or put them to go door to door.
I'm telling you, the flyer thing, I mean, it's not easy to hand out flyers in town. There I am driving from place to place. But I, went in, introduced myself, and I met everybody. And then, I was explaining to one of the manager of actually it was the lumber store. And then suddenly I looked around, there were like 10 people and they were all listening. And I was telling about the meeting and what was going on with you know what I mean? How else are you going to get in your community? If you don't just meet people one-on-one and at least give them, they give you 2 minutes of their time, you can, have your 2-minute elevator pitch ready so that you can share with them what's going on. And I met all kinds of people. It was very, it was cool.
Well, and in the midst of all that, here's me coming from another perspective is that, when Yeshua said that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, what was he saying? He said, what he's saying is that the presence of God is where you are.
Yes.
And what an opportunity, therefore, going in and meeting all these people where you're building relationships, connecting with people. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're looking at what's happening in the Hebrew roots and Messianic communities, they're dying, they're shrinking.
Yeah, they are.
But if we start connecting and we start connecting with people, look, how many people can we pull out of the fires? And actually, because all of a sudden now they see our heart desire is burned from a passion because we love our King.
Right. And for people. Yeah.
I mean, we talk about the 2 commandments where everything else hinges upon, and loving God and loving our neighbor. What a greater way that it actually connects. People can agree with that.
That's right.
It's a problem. The thing is we meet in our groups and we hope someone will join us.
That formula, whatever, no longer works.
No.
We have got to stop insulating ourselves, and we have to go out and forget the waiting around for people to come in, because people aren't going to come in. And maybe 1 or 2 will come here and there, but that's not what it's about. It's about going out and rescuing them in the highways and the byways. And I mean, things are a mess and people's lives are in chaos. And, we have the message of hope. What good is it if we're arguing over, a midrash or whatever? It's just, I ain't there. I'll write about it in my books, but, and that's the other thing. I mean, typically in a movement like ours, we don't see any leadership doing this. And so I'm hoping to at least be an example that a leader can, go out into the whatever den of iniquity and try to work within the community, to bring about, something, change and just a transformation. And I hope people can see that. That's kind of my heart. And feel like the Father's equipped me to do that and to be an example. Because, like I said, I can't really name too many leaders in any of these movements that we're in that are actually, sounding the alarm and doing anything. So hopefully it helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, even just seeing your posts and hearing your voice and hearing what you have to say, my prayer is that it opens up. Well, our prayer always let the scales fall from the eyes, but
Yeah.
I'm talking to the believers. The scales need to fall from your eyes. Hear, O Israel, and listen. You are meant to do more, as you guys have been talking about, than just sit and learn. You are meant, we proclaim to be doers. It's time that we do, lest this is what comes.
There's no greater time right now where voices are being silenced, where we're being censored, that we're being taken off of platforms. There's no greater time that this is how we're going to affect our communities. This is how we're going to affect the change. This is how we're going to affect the outcome of the elections in 2020. And we have to start now.
Yeah. Well, our country's at stake. I mean, is it worth dying for? Is it worth fighting for?
Honestly, the stuff that I've been researching and looking at, if things switch and change, I mean, literally, it could mean our very lives. Mm-hmm. And that's how serious it is. Because if we are, I don't remember the categories, the red dots and the blue dots and these categories that people has said that we've been ranked as. Some are immediately whisked away to the FEMA camps, to the guillotine. I've been listening to that for 10 years, but who knows when that could become a reality. We know when we look at other countries and we look at what happened in Armenia when they took the guns away and then they went after all of the Christians, and 250,000 slaughtered, I think, right away.
Oh yeah, that was one of the greatest massacres in history.
Yeah, they took the guns and they ran them down and they burned them in barns. They gathered them together and burned them to death. Look how many millions were killed under Stalin.
Oh, well, we don't even know. I mean, we get 25 million estimates, but they're saying probably double that. And also Mao Zedong. I mean, 50 million people. We've got enough examples in history to know where this is headed if we don't stand up.
And why would we think it'd be any different this time around? If you listen to what the extreme left is saying, that we have no purpose in their society. That is not. That's not code. That is a reality.
They don't hide it anymore.
Yeah.
No, nothing. I mean, it's not being hidden. And perhaps that's where we needed to get to, so people actually go, that's who they are. Well, I just
kill a baby a baby in a botched abortion that they'll keep and make it comfortable until the mother and the doctors decide what they want to do with it. If they're still willing to kill a baby, an innocent life, let alone abort it,
an innocent life,
then there is no value in life, and anybody that is opposition to them is worthy of the same.
Well, and that's why, as believers, we stand up for life, and we are God's representatives to show how He values life, and we're the only ones that they're going to see this. And you just don't know the number of hearts you can touch in your sphere. And as I always say, if you just work in your sphere of influence, we have just concentric circles all the way across the country of influencing spheres, crossing over. I mean, it can change. But it's a choice. It's free will, and people have to make a decision that they're going to. I'm not going to change the United States, but I can certainly work in my community. That's where I'm planted. That's where I'm going to work.
Yes.
Where would you tell people to start if they want to get involved?
Well, I basically tell people, one of the things I'd like to say, the first thing you should probably do is go to Hillsdale College and take Constitution 101. It's free. And it's a 10-week course, and everyone needs to be, it is an excellent course, and we all need to be reminded, because I've forgotten a lot of stuff. I mean, I haven't studied the Constitution for 30 years. So I went back, I'm taking the course and going through it and going, that's a good place to start. And if you're a homeschooling family, just bring that little course into your family and start educating your kids. You start with yourself and you educate yourself, and then you move outward so you can educate your kids. And then as you know the Constitution better, and you've got to learn how to synthesize the material. So we live in a time in which you don't have very much time to share something. So you have to learn how to be brief in what you share, because you've maybe got somebody for 2 or 3 minutes. So you got to be able to say it fast and penetrate. So I would definitely recommend starting there. I would also, start thinking about what particular issue is of interest to you or is on your heart. So, we all can't do everything, but I think everyone has an area in which they feel very strongly about. So that's somewhere they can begin to move in. I think that you need to know who your leaders are in your community. You need to start building relationships with those leaders. If it means taking the mayor out for coffee, I don't know, sit down and find out where the mayor is at and talk to the mayor or the town council or whatever. Find out what precinct you're in. Texas, there must be like 10,000 precincts. I don't know. And like I said, there's usually only anywhere from 500 to 800 people represented by a precinct. So find out who your precinct is, call a Republican Party, whatever, they will tell you, and find out who the chair and the captain is of the precinct. Talk to them. Ask them what you can do to help. How can you pray for them? Just keep it centered in your world, and don't worry so much about yes, if we need to call Washington about an issue, yes, do that. And start building. I think the most important thing is to build relationships in your community and ask people how you can help them. And if there's any kind of call to action, do it. Like if it means buying diapers for the the CareNet facility or the Save the Storks or whatever, go buy some diapers. There's just any myriad of ways. But I do think the biggest, because of social media, relationships have fallen by the wayside. And so the other side is very adept in that area. When you have a protest, if you will, in New Mexico, and it's on a Monday, nobody's going to show up because everybody works. Now the other side will bus them in and pay them, but we're like regular folks. But I think how we win is through relationship building. So just don't overwhelm yourself. Start small and find those. Networking is the number one best way, to start working and asking people. Lawmakers don't get calls from people. How can I help you? What do you need? You need to know every single one of your lawmakers that represent your district, Senate and House, etc. You need to know all these people. So I don't know. Does that help?
It does.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, I tell you what, it was wonderful having you on today. And
Thanks.
I hope all of it's just great to see you and have a chance to talk with you. But I hope every one of our listeners, and those that are watching on YouTube right now, and those will be watching in the archive, actually will be inspired. I feel inspired from what we've talked about, and I'm thinking in my mind, it's churning like, okay, how do I become more active? Sandy and I have talked about, well, we need to make it down to the city council meetings. We need to figure out who these people are
exactly
that are making these rules. We don't even know what rules they're making around us. So, I try to stay on top of the stuff that's going on in Washington, but the point is what you said is, it's networking here.
I think you still need to be abreast of both.
And we're not saying not, but really where you're the most useful is in your community.
Yeah. And I'll have to say this. I've been to one precinct meeting ever in my life. And you know how many people were there?
None.
About 6 or 7 people, I think. That was probably a good day. So every one of us got elected to go to the county.
And that's the key. Nobody. Yeah. That's what you want.
So
that's where you have power. The power is at the precinct level.
Yeah. So it's not that complicated. It's just we've got to figure out when and where.
Yeah.
And how to do it. So
I would hate for you to get off here without also talking. Just let people know how to connect with you in the ministry.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And,
I have a
and your
ministry.
books and so much
Yeah,
more.
I am. I'm actually working on a project in the middle of all this. I'm going to be I'm calling it Kingdom Clips, and I'm going to be going through the entire New Testament, a chunk of scriptures at a time, and I'm going to show the themes in those chunk of scriptures of new creation and the Exodus and kingship and whatever else I come up with, and give the historical background to it, what it meant back then, and then how it can apply to us today, all in 5 minutes or less.
Woo.
Oh,
Because the reality is that's what you got.
yeah.
You got 5 minutes. So that's a project I'm working on. My ministry, you can either go to dinnahdye.com or foundationsandtorah.com. I've posted, for those of you who want to join, I have a membership website, but I just posted a whole bunch of new material from the temple conferences and stuff. There's a lot of really good stuff on there now, and I revamped the website so it looks a lot better than it did. And I been working on my third volume of the Temple Revealed series. So the first one, Temple Revealed in the Garden, Temple Revealed in Creation, Temple Revealed in the Garden, and now I'm working on the Temple Revealed in Noah's Ark. And in the middle of all this, I'm trying to write my book. So I'm, I don't even know. The days just go by, and some days I don't think I got anything done. But the book is in pretty decent shape, and I'm hoping by early summer. But it's interesting because it keeps kind of changing based on because I'm trying to make it relevant. So what I understand about things has kind of changed. So all that's kind of in the book as well. So look for that on your Amazon account. Be out at some point. So yeah, I'm pretty busy, but enjoying it. I mean, what else am I going to do?
And what is your website one more time?
www.foundationsandtorah.com or www.dinnahdye.com. Either one will get you there. And check it out. There's a lot of good stuff there.
I will have to say we are partners with Dr. Dinah Dye, and it is an amazing website and resource. So
yeah, and thank you for supporting. I mean that's all that has helped me to be able to do this actually,
Yes.
And so
Good.
I'm trying not to. I've looked at this this is like a 5-week window in which it's crazy. It's all going to end on Saturday, and I'm actually taking a vacation. I'm going to go lie on the beach and just check out for a little while.
Yeah.
And then, when I get back, I'm going through the training for precinct chair, and, things will kind of quiet down, although the whole move for these petitions will begin to happen. I don't know how many of the laws they're going to try to nullify, but I don't know. And I don't know how far we'll get with that, but it won't be quite as intense as the last 4 weeks.
Well, all I can say is thank you so much for your hard work in your community, for waking us up, for showing us how to do it, for also being such you're leading, you're showing us how to walk out our faith. And thank you so much for being that example to all of us. And we appreciate it. And thank you for joining us. And hopefully we get to see you this direction soon, one of these days.
Oh, yeah. It actually will be sooner than you think. Yes.
Well, we can talk about that after the program's over.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks
right.
for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Hey, everybody, you have been listening to Walking in Spirit and Truth. We're so glad that you've joined us. If you like what you hear, we would love to hear from you. Oh, you can click and send us an email or something at www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org. Also, if you would like to partner with us, go to that same website and you click the donate button and partner with us. Or if you would like John or myself or both of us to come speak at your congregation, just let us know.
Or Dr.
Dinah Dye. That's exactly
That's
right.
right.
And we are there available, and we would love to get to know you better. So thank you for joining us this evening. Until next time, this is Sandi.
Hey, and this is John. So
Shalom.
shalom.